You're listening to Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on CJAD 800.
That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, I love this title. It's a shame it's not real. Quebec's new education minister, of course, Bernard Drainville, and maybe he could add title Minister of Mother's Day to his
Parents' Day.
I think
Parents'
Parents'
Day.
Yeah. How did this make it all the way there?
It's appropriate to call him the Protector. You know the old title with the English Kings, Protector of the Faith. He's Protector of Mother's Day, and I guess Father's Day as well.
So, the fact that, and we talked about this earlier, we were taking calls from listeners, the fact this has made it all the way to the education minister kind of makes you wonder what's going on. I know that a bunch of people think this is kind of a ridiculous issue to be discussing, but he weighed in today.
Well, he weighed in, and what's interesting here, and I know people are, either chuckling about it, or I'm sure some people called in and said this is ridiculous.
Yeah, that was Ed. Ed called in to say
I'm
that.
sorry?
Ed called in to say it was ridiculous.
Stupid,
Ed
I think was the word.
Yeah. Okay, my best to Ed.
Stupid.
Here's the thing. We're talking about teachers of a single grade 2 class at a school in Quebec City who send an email to parents of those grade 2 students saying, listen, we don't have, this class is not your typical heterogeneous kind of class. We have, kids who don't have, only have one parent. We have kids who are in foster care. So we've decided rather than going with Mother's Day and Father's Day, we're just going to call it Parents' Day. Okay? Now, if you think about that for a second, remember the scale of this. We're talking about a grade 2 class in a Quebec City elementary school. Well, of course, the email gets screen grabbed, put on the net. It's the equivalent of throwing a bag of bloody meat into a pool of piranhas. It gets seized upon by all the trolls on the internet, and of course, Eric Duhem, who just blows a gasket, and he tags Bernard Drainville in one of his tweets, and he basically says, are you going to let the wokes abolish Mother's Day? Are you already let the drag queens into schools to teach about gender theory and about the deconstruction of genders? Look where this leads. And then he adds the statement from the school board saying, well, maybe they should have done this a different way. It was their initiative. We're sorry if anybody was offended. Here's the thing. Once the school board turns around and puts out this statement after the email and says, listen, you know what? They meant well. It was directed to their students, okay? Well, here's Eric James, who then goes on to social media, and I love this. He goes, it was never a question of making mothers or fathers disappear from our schools. But here's the kicker, and it never will be a question. It's almost like at the end of that, he should just twirl his 6-shooter and put it back in his holster. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. But here's what gets me above and beyond this. Aren't we being told by people, like Bernard Drainville, by politicians, not woke people who live in 21st century Quebec, that life, society has changed? And you have to ask yourself the question. There are kids who are in grade 1 or grade 2. Guess what? They have 2 fathers, or they have 2 mothers, or they have 1 father or 1 mother. I mean, the family, this completely mythical nuclear Walt Disney version family still exists, but it's got a lot of company. And the only thing that happened here was these teachers, in addressing the parents of these kids, had the temerity to acknowledge that fact. But now, because to a certain extent, society, and certainly this government, has declared its own little jihad on what they perceive as wokeism, this has become this 24-hour scandal, and it's showing how, it's going over the top. But, there's some teachers out there that are being interviewed on this. They said, listen, I have a kid in my grade 1 class. His father committed suicide last year. Should I force him to make a card for Father's Day? Things happen. And this is a typical example of how, even if it's the road to hell paved with good intentions, how a well-meaning act gets picked up on the open sewer pipe of social media and then gets, just completely exploited for political gain, which I think is perhaps the real issue that should be addressed here. So honestly, I think it's a perfect example, not just of how you should be careful, especially when you hit send on anything whatsoever to anybody on the planet, but also to be ready for people to really exhibit the worst side of their character once you do so.
And that is true. You kind of wonder, though, Jim, tomorrow, this 24-day news cycle, is this even being talked about 24 hours from now?
Oh, I think so.
But isn't it funny, though, how, all of a sudden, because, listen, we used to pat ourselves on the back. Yeah, we're there. We had the idea of same-sex marriage, which is, in fact, same-sex civil union. But all that said, and I mentioned this to you guys when the government started notwithstanding anything that it didn't like in its political agenda. You got to be careful, because there is that streak of meanness that still exists, not just in Quebec, but everywhere. And my concern about the idea of playing fast and loose with rights is that it's not this government. I'm not suggesting this government would do something. It's the government 8, 10, 12 years down the road that might have a different point of view. And we had a little glimmer of that today, in that terms of people saying, how dare you? My reply would be, how dare you basically go into what is essentially a private correspondence between teachers and parents?
Mm-hmm.
3 teachers, that's it. Not a school board, not a whole bunch of schools, just 3 teachers in one class. So
huge hullabaloo. Speaking about a hullabaloo, I think this guy's gotten really good at making hullabaloo. You're saying there's a new force in city politics, call it the Eichenbaum effect. It's got to be Ziggy.
Of course. Unless it's the lesser-known Claude Eichenbaum, who we never talked about.
His younger brother, right? So this is about the parking situation downtown.
The city of Montreal, the Plante administration kind of got busted on its parking cash grab the way, the Titanic kind of got wet, all right? They, if it hadn't been for Ziggy Eichenbaum, minding his own business, presumably going into the pub that bears his name, he looks and he just happens to notice that parking meter that looks kind of funny. What's new there? And he goes and he sees, as Jason just told us on the news, parking hours have been extended, parking rates have gone up. So he does a double take. I know he at least called Bill Brownstein, maybe called other people. Billy starts calling up, Centre-Ville Montreal, the local city councilor. Nobody knew a thing about this. And now we hear that the Plante administration, we're not going to do anything at least until after the summer, which to me, the subtitles on the bottom of my screen basically said, we're not going to do this until everyone has sufficiently forgotten about it, and we'll try and pull it again. But the fact is they got busted. The fact is somebody with the usual naturally occurring, how can I put it, insouciance that surrounds day-to-day operations in the city of Montreal. They put the stickers up too soon. The cat was out of the bag. The executive committee member in charge of the whole thing is basically saying, it's too soon, but we intend to do this. There's no problem here. And all of a sudden there is a problem. But it all goes back to just one man, Ziggy Eichenbaum, who had the present. He saw something. He said something. And the rest is, as they say, history. But my God, what a way to run a city.
Tried to sneak a fastball by him and got caught. You know what? We played that clip of Valerie Plante addressing this because it came up today in part of a press conference. It's one of those long and winding answers, Jim, that basically is just the same. It goes absolutely nowhere. There's no answer other than, we're okay for now till the end of the summer, and then we'll decide what it is we're going to do because we don't know what we're going to do, but we'll talk to people about what we're going to do. It's crazy.
Well, that's the first big step. I laughed out loud. We're going to talk to local businesses.
Yeah.
Really? Why start now?
After the fact. Yeah. We'll put them in first, then we'll talk to local businesses.
Uh-huh.
James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Adam.